The day I realized my boss wasn't just toxic, he was dangerous. I've spent most of my adult life trying to convince myself that I'm the kind of person who keeps their head down, does their work, and avoids drama. I always thought if I stayed quiet, followed the rules, and didn't step on anyone's toes, the universe would more or less leave me alone. But life has a funny way of testing that belief, especially when you end up working under someone who has turned toxicity into an art form. My boss, Daniel Mercer, wasn't the kind of toxic that people warn you about during HR orientation videos. There were no slam doors, no screaming matches, no obvious red flags you could point to and say, "Yep, that guy's a problem." His version of toxicity was subtle, strategic, and sharp enough to cut through your career without you realizing it until you were already bleeding. At first, I admired him. I genuinely did. He was charming during interviews, spoke confidently during meetings, and somehow always knew the right corporate buzzwords to make upper management drool all over him. He was the rising star of our department, the kind of guy who looked like he belonged on one of those LinkedIn motivational posters. And then there was me, Evan, the quiet analyst who joined the team hoping to work hard and eventually move up. I had no idea I was walking into a game he had already rigged. The first sign that something was wrong came on a random Tuesday afternoon. We were in the middle of preparing quarterly reports. Numbers mattered, accuracy mattered, and our entire team was exhausted from triple-checking everything. I was sifting through mountains of data when I noticed something that didn't make sense. Two sets of numbers didn't match. One came from the actual raw data our system generated. The other came from the adjusted numbers that Daniel had emailed earlier that morning. And let me be clear, the differences weren't small. The adjusted numbers made the company look significantly more profitable than we actually were. So profitable, in fact, that it bordered on impossible. It wasn't the usual rounding errors or small corrections managers sometimes make before presenting numbers to the board. This was intentional manipulation. I remember staring at my monitor, blinking several times like maybe I had misread it. My first instinct wasn't my boss is stealing. No, my first instinct was, I must be misunderstanding something, because why would a man like Daniel, someone so polished, so well-liked, risk his career by fudging numbers? I forwarded the numbers to him with a simple message. Hey Daniel, just noticed some discrepancies between the raw data and the adjusted report. Want me to fix it, or are these intentional revisions? He responded within seconds, which was unusual for him. Do not touch the adjusted numbers. Just finalize your section and send everything to me.
No explanation. No clarification.
No reason. And then he ended the email with his signature period. Something I'd come to associate with Daniel's version of slamming a door. I tried to ignore it. Really, I did. I told myself that managers sometimes did things analysts like me didn't understand. He was probably smoothing out forecasts. Maybe he had access to information I didn't. But I'm not an idiot. I didn't sleep that night. The numbers kept spinning in my head. Something in my gut told me that whatever this was, it wasn't a one-time thing. The next morning, I got my confirmation. Not on purpose. Not because someone warned me, but because I happened to walk into the office 30 minutes early, something I never did, and caught Daniel inside our shared network folder. He jumped when he saw me enter. That alone was weird, because Daniel was the type of man who only pretended to be surprised if it benefited him. Real surprise looked awkward on him. His hand hovered over his mouse like he was trying to hide something. "Morning," I said, trying to sound casual. He didn't return the greeting. Instead, he closed the spreadsheet so fast it was almost cartoonish. Then he smiled. A rehearsed smile. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Evan, early start today. Could say the same about you," I replied. He didn't like that. I could tell his jaw tightened for a half second. Then he walked past me, patting my shoulder like I was a puppy that needed training. "Remember, whatever you see in the folder stays between us. Data is sensitive, you know?" I knew what sensitive data looked like, and I knew what guilt looked like. Daniel was guilty. The real question was of what. Over the next few weeks, I kept noticing more discrepancies. Numbers manually changed, performance charts edited, expense reports altered. It didn't take long to realize that Daniel wasn't just trying to make the department look good. He was funneling money, small amounts at first, then larger, into accounts labeled with vague vendor names. At first glance, they looked legitimate. But if you dug deeper, you'd find they didn't exist. He created them. Fake vendors. Fake expenses. Real money disappearing. The worst part? Upper management trusted him so blindly that nobody questioned a thing. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't someone who liked conflict. I wasn't someone who enjoyed confrontation. But I also wasn't someone who could watch a crime unfold and pretend it wasn't happening. So I did something stupid. I confronted him, not in an aggressive way, not with accusations. I just asked him why 3 vendor payments didn't match the invoice history. He didn't get defensive. He didn't yell. He didn't deny it. He just smiled. That same practiced smile he used in meetings. "Evan," he said softly, "you're smart. Too smart to ask questions like that." "Then help me understand," I said carefully. He leaned back in his chair like he was settling in to deliver a lecture. "There are things above your pay grade that you don't need to worry about. Your job is to follow instructions. My job is to make sure the department looks good." He paused. "So let me give you one instruction. Stop digging." I opened my mouth to argue, but he held up a hand. "You like your job, right?" I didn't respond. He tilted his head. "That's what I thought." And that was the moment I realized something important. Daniel wasn't just manipulating numbers. He was manipulating people. He was manipulating me. The next few weeks were hell. He started piling impossible workloads onto me. He started nitpicking small mistakes I didn't even make. He started copying upper management on every email he sent me, subtly painting me as incompetent. It wasn't random. It was punishment, a warning, a message. Fall in line or I'll destroy your career. I don't know why he underestimated me. Maybe because I was quiet. Maybe because I didn't cause trouble. Maybe because I didn't look like the type of person who would fight back. But the thing about quiet people, we notice everything. And I noticed the one mistake he made. He left a trail. A small one. Tiny one. But enough. One night, after everyone left, I stayed late under the pretense of finishing an overdue report. But really, I was gathering evidence. Screenshots, exported spreadsheets, email chains, metadata logs showing who edited what and when. Every file he thought he deleted, still recoverable. Every vendor he created, tracked. Every amount he siphoned, documented. My hands were shaking the entire time, partly from fear, partly from adrenaline, partly because I knew if he walked in and caught me, it would be over. I didn't sleep that night either. But for the first time in weeks, it wasn't anxiety keeping me awake. It was clarity. I wasn't going to let this man ruin me. I wasn't going to let him ruin anyone else either. The next morning, Daniel walked into the office with the confidence of a man who believed he controlled everything around him. He stopped by my desk, leaned in slightly, and whispered, "Remember what we talked about. Stay in your lane." I smiled back, and for the first time it wasn't forced. "Don't worry," I said quietly. "I'm exactly where I need to be." He walked away, clueless about the storm heading his way. What I didn't know was that exposing him wouldn't be as simple as emailing HR or going to upper management. Daniel had allies, powerful ones, people who benefited from his lies. And before I could bring him down, I'd soon discover something even darker. Daniel wasn't just stealing money. He was sabotaging employees, intentionally, systematically, and I was next on his list. The day everything fell apart, and how I finally exposed him. If part 1 was the quiet build-up, part 2 is where everything snapped into place. Slowly, painfully, and with the kind of clarity that only comes when you've been pushed too far. I didn't walk into work that next day planning to burn down my boss's career. I didn't even walk in feeling brave. I just walked in tired. Tired of the fear, tired of the numbers, tired of pretending I didn't know what he was doing. But the universe has this weird timing. The moment you finally decide you're done being pushed around is usually the moment life decides to test you even harder. And that's exactly what happened. The day he turned the entire office against me. It started with an email. I hadn't even taken my first sip of coffee when I saw it sitting in my inbox, marked urgent, CC'd to upper management, HR, and half the department. Daniel's email. I opened it and my stomach dropped. He accused me by name of altering financial data. Me.
Exact wording.
It has come to my attention that Evan may have tampered with Q2 financial files. Currently reviewing the situation. Will update. He didn't go full accusation yet. He made it vague enough to sound professional, but pointed enough that everyone reading it would think, oh damn, Evan messed up. I stared at the screen, frozen. He was setting me up. He wasn't just protecting himself anymore. He was framing me. He wanted me fired. Or worse, he wanted me to panic, to cave, to stop digging. And for about 10 minutes, it worked. I felt that old fear creep up my spine, the kind that makes your chest tight and your hands cold. Part of me wanted to walk into his office, apologize, beg him to back off, and pretend I didn't know what I knew. But the other part, the part that had stayed up until 3 a.m. documenting his every lie, that part finally woke up. And once it woke up, it didn't go back to sleep. The trap he didn't know I saw coming. Around noon, Daniel called me into his office. He didn't ask. He didn't invite. He commanded. I stepped inside, and he closed the door behind me, a little too aggressively. He sat down, folded his hands, and looked at me like a disappointed father. You've put me in a difficult position, Evan. I didn't respond. You accessed files you shouldn't have. You questioned things you had no business questioning. And now people are asking why your login is tied to multiple discrepancies. My login. He used my username. He altered files and made it look like I did it. He really thought he was invincible. What do you want from me? I finally asked. He leaned back in his chair. I want you to write an email admitting you made mistakes. Nothing huge. Something we can frame as a learning experience. After that, I'll handle the rest. It'll blow over. I laughed. Not loudly. Not sarcastically. Just softly. A tired, disappointed laugh. And that's when his expression changed, because he realized I wasn't scared anymore. Daniel, I said calmly, you really think I'm that stupid? His jaw tightened. This isn't a game, Evan. You're right, I said. It's not. I reached into my bag, pulled out a folder, and slid it across his desk. He didn't open it immediately. He just stared at it like it was radioactive. What is this? He asked. Proof, I said. Every edited file, every fake vendor, every payment you rerouted, metadata logs, email trails, timestamp records, everything. He didn't breathe for a few seconds. Then he forced a laugh, fake, brittle, shaking at the edges. You think this scares me? No, I said. But I think it scares the people I already sent copies to. That wiped the smile off his face. You didn't, he whispered. I did, I said. 3 people, including someone outside the company. Even if you fire me today, the trail's already there. He stood up so suddenly his chair scraped the floor. You don't understand who you're messing with. I understand enough. Do you know how easy it is to destroy someone like you? He hissed. Do you know how easy it is to check vendor registrations? I replied softly. Silence. A dangerous silence. He looked like he wanted to throw the folder or throw me or throw himself out a window. His face twisted with something I'd never seen before. Not confidence. Not charm, pure, simmering panic. You're making a mistake, he said. No, I said. You did. I walked out before he responded. My legs were shaking. but my mind felt clearer than it had in weeks. I knew what was coming next. He was going to retaliate, hard, but I didn't expect him to do what he did next. The attempt to ruin my life completely. Within 2 hours of leaving his office, HR emailed me. Please come to a meeting at 3 p.m. regarding concerns about your performance and conduct. There it was, his last move. He wanted to get ahead of the story. He wanted to paint me as unstable, dishonest, or incompetent before I could expose him. He wanted my head on a silver platter. 3 p.m. arrived like a funeral march. I walked into HR, and Daniel was already there, pretending to look calm and sad, as if he was the one heartbroken about all this. He started speaking first. I wanted to address my concerns privately, but the amount of irregularities tied to Evan's access forced me to escalate the matter. He sounded wounded. He sounded disappointed. He looked like someone giving a eulogy. He was good. I'll give him that. But here's the thing about liars, they always underestimate people who stay quiet. Because when quiet people finally decide to speak, we bring the whole truth. Before we continue, I said, I forwarded all relevant documents to HR, legal, and the CFO this morning. Daniel froze. HR blinked. What documents? They asked. The ones showing months of data tampering under Daniel's login credentials, I said, along with proof of fraudulent vendor payments, missing funds, and metadata logs from the internal system. HR turned to Daniel. He tried to keep his face neutral, but he couldn't. His expression cracked. His eyes widened. He looked cornered. Evan, he said slowly, you're confused. These accusations are already verified, I said. I also sent everything to an outside attorney for my own protection. HR sat up straighter. Daniel, they said carefully, we're going to have to pause this meeting. No, Daniel snapped. This is ridiculous. He's lying. Then let IT verify the logs, I said. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. HR stood. Daniel stayed frozen in his seat. We'll resume after we review everything. I walked out without looking back. The collapse of a toxic man. The next 72 hours were chaos. IT pulled system logs. HR reviewed financial trails. Upper management called emergency meetings. And every time they found something, Daniel tried to explain it away. Every time they questioned him, he stumbled. Every time the truth cornered him, he lashed out. By the end of the week, they escorted him out. Not quietly, not respectfully. Security walked him through the office in front of everyone. My coworkers stared in shock. Some whispered, some gasped. But Daniel, he didn't look angry. He didn't look scared. He looked at me, and the look he gave me wasn't hatred. It was disbelief, like he couldn't accept that someone like me, quiet, gentle, unproblematic me, was the one who finally ended his game. People underestimate quiet people. They forget that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. The aftermath that changed everything. After he was gone, HR apologized to me twice. Upper management thanked me. Legal asked me to walk them through everything for their investigation. I always believed my mother was the most predictable person on this planet. She woke up at the same time every morning, brewed the same weak instant coffee, listened to the same old Bollywood songs from the early 2000s, and kept everything in our home arranged with the precision of a museum. She was quiet, gentle, and almost painfully private. Growing up, I used to think she was boring. Now I know she was hiding something so big that our entire family identity was built on a lie. The story began on the morning I found her crying alone in the kitchen. I'd never seen her cry before, ever. Not when she broke her wrist, not when her mother died, not even when my dad left for 6 months on a work contract. She wasn't dramatic. She wasn't emotional. She was stone. But that morning, she was gripping the countertop with one hand, covering her mouth with the other, shoulders shaking as she cried silently, like she didn't want the sound to escape. I didn't say anything immediately because I felt like I had stepped into something I wasn't meant to see. But after a minute, she sensed my presence and straightened her back like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "What happened?" I asked softly. She wiped her face with the edge of her dupatta. "Nothing." Something burned my eyes. But there was no smoke, no onions, no cooking, and something had fallen on the floor. A small, yellowing envelope I'd never seen before. It had old Indian postal stamps and an unfamiliar handwriting. She snatched it before I could look. I didn't push. My mother never liked being questioned. But all day, something inside me wouldn't stop turning. That envelope had shaken her in a way nothing ever had. Couldn't sleep that night, and I guess fate didn't want me to, because around midnight, I heard the floorboard creak. My mother was leaving her room. I stayed quiet. She tiptoed through the hall like a thief, holding that same envelope tightly against her chest. Then she slipped into the storeroom, the one place she never allowed me inside. The one place she always kept locked. She closed the door behind her but didn't lock it. And that's when something inside me snapped. I had to know. I waited 30 seconds, then slowly walked to the door. I pressed my ear against it. First, nothing. Just soft breathing. And then I heard it. A man's voice. Not physically present, but playing from something. A cassette? A recording? My mother's breath hitched. And then she whispered, "Why now? After all these years? Why now?" My heart stopped. Who was she talking to? I pushed gently. The door opened with a soft click. Inside, she wasn't facing me. She was kneeling on the floor with boxes scattered around her. She had old photos spread out, a cassette player, and a stack of letters. Some had seals from police departments, others from a prison. And there, taped to the lid of a box, was a photograph of her. Younger, fierce, eyes full of fire, standing next to a man with a gun in his hand. For a second, my brain didn't even register the gun. I was too busy noticing how unfamiliar she looked. Confident, reckless, alive in a way I had never seen. She turned and gasped when she saw me. "How long have you been standing there?" she asked, voice breaking. "Long enough to know you're not who you said you are." She pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. "Please, not tonight." But it was too late. I stepped into the room and looked closer at the photo. The man beside her had hard eyes and a scar cutting across his jaw. He looked dangerous, violent, criminal, and my mother was standing next to him like she belonged there. "Who is he?" I asked. Her breath trembled. "Someone I hoped you would never know existed. But he did, and you did too. Whatever this is, it's part of you." She closed her eyes, and softly, she said the words that cracked my entire reality in half. "He was the man I loved before your father, and he wasn't just dangerous. He was wanted." I froze. "Wanted for what?" She swallowed hard. "Everything." She handed me the cassette player with a shaking hand, like she was surrendering. I pressed play. A man's voice filled the room. Deep, tired, but unmistakably familiar in its tone. Like I had heard it somewhere in my DNA. "Anita, if you're hearing this, they're closing in on me. I don't know how much time I have left. But I need you to know what we started, someone is still watching. Someone who won't stop until the truth comes out." The recording clicked off.
Ist hier?
"Mom, what truth?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into the box and pulled out something I never imagined I would see in my life. A newspaper article with her photo circled in red ink. Headline: "Missing accomplice of notorious criminal still unfound." My blood ran cold. Accomplice? My mother? She looked at me with tears in her eyes. I wasn't innocent, but I wasn't guilty either. I did what I had to do to survive. The room felt smaller and smaller. "How did you escape?" I whispered. She took a deep breath. "I didn't escape. I disappeared." Her fingers trembled as she opened another envelope, this one marked with an American postal stamp. Inside was a single sheet of paper with only one sentence. "I found you." My heart stopped. "Who sent that?" I asked. She shook her head. "I don't know, but whoever it is, they're coming." Then she grabbed my shoulders, eyes wide with fear unlike anything I'd ever seen in her. "You need to be careful. Don't trust anyone who asks about me. Not even family." "Why not family?" I asked. Her silence was worse than an answer. She stood up slowly, walked to the old metal locker at the back of the storeroom, and unlocked it with a key she kept hidden in her blouse. Inside were stacks of cash, a passport with a different name, photos of her with the wanted man, and a gun. I stepped back. "Mom, what is all this?" She looked at me with eyes that carried 20 years of pain. "The life I left behind. The life that refuses to leave me." The rain started outside, tapping against the window like impatient fingers. She whispered, "I never wanted you to know who I really was, but someone is forcing my past back into the present. And if they're coming for me, they might come for you too." I tried to breathe, but panic crawled into my lungs. "Why would they come for me?" Her answer was a whisper, "Because you're his child too." Everything inside me went blank. "What?" She shut the locker door and quietly said, "You are not your father's son, and the man I ran from, he might be coming back." The world tilted under my feet. "Is he alive?" She looked away. "I don't know, but the letters never stopped." I felt sick, dizzy, betrayed, my entire identity ripping apart. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. Her voice broke. "Because his enemies would have killed you before you turned 10. Before I could speak, the doorbell rang. Once, twice, then 3 times in a slow, deliberate pattern. My mother's face drained of color. "That's his signal." I froze. "What do we do?" She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "We don't open the door. We run." She pulled me toward the back entrance, but before we reached it, someone pounded heavily on the front door. No more gentle signal, no more patience, just force. Then a voice spoke from outside. "Anita, open the door. It's time." My mother whispered, trembling, "God help us. He's found us." I sat there in my living room staring at the file my cousin had given me, feeling like my whole body had gone numb. It wasn't shock anymore. It wasn't anger. It was this weird, heavy, sinking feeling, like the kind you get when you finally understand something you wish you never knew in the first place. The house was quiet, too quiet, and for the first time in my life, I actually felt scared of the truth instead of craving it. The sun had already set by the time I forced myself out of the chair. I didn't know what to do, but sitting there wasn't helping. I kept thinking about my dad, the real dad, the man in the picture, the one who looked almost exactly like me. Same nose, same jawline, same awkward way of smiling like he wasn't used to it. I looked like a copy of a ghost. And the thing that bothered me the most was how much my mom must have feared that I would find out. She spent my whole life being overly protective of anything related to her past. She didn't like pictures. She didn't like family conversations that drifted too far back. She didn't like people asking questions. And now I knew why. I grabbed my keys and left the house because I couldn't sit with it any longer. I drove to my aunt's place, the one person who always had a way of calming things down. She lived about 20 minutes away, and during that whole drive, my hands kept shaking on the wheel. Not because of anger, because I didn't know how to talk about this without breaking down. When I reached her place and knocked, she opened the door like she'd been expecting me somehow. Her eyes scanned my face, and she sighed like she knew exactly what I had in my hands before I even showed her. "You found out," she said softly. I didn't even speak. I just stepped inside and handed her the file. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. She sat on the couch, patted the seat next to her, and waited until I looked like I wouldn't fall apart before speaking. "I wanted your mom to tell you," she said. But she was terrified. Every time she tried, she'd freeze up. Not because she didn't want you to know, but because she didn't want you to hate her. I swallowed hard. "I don't hate her. I just don't understand." She nodded slowly. "You will. But you need to hear everything from someone who was actually there." And so she told me. She told me about my mom at 19, trying to figure out her life while helping her own mother pay bills. She told me about the man, my biological father, who was charming at first but had too many secrets. My mom loved him blindly and desperately, in the kind of way only young people love when they think the world is finally giving them something good. But he wasn't good. He had another life, another woman, another mess he had created somewhere else. When my mom found out, she left him. She had the strength to walk away. But then she found out she was pregnant. My aunt said my mom cried for weeks, thinking she'd ruined her life, thinking people would judge her, thinking she'd be alone forever. But she wasn't. Her family stepped in. And then she met the man I grew up calling Dad. The man who raised me, loved me, protected me like I was his own blood. And honestly, blood meant nothing after I heard how he treated her. He was the real father in every way that mattered. But my mom never told me the truth because she didn't want me to feel unwanted. She didn't want me to feel like a mistake. And she didn't want to pain my dad by reopening old wounds. When my aunt finished talking, I just sat there staring at the floor. It was too much to take in all at once. I wasn't angry at her anymore. I wasn't even angry at the real father. I was just tired. Tired of everything feeling like a lie. "You don't have to forgive her now," my aunt said. "But you need to know she loves you more than anyone on this planet." I nodded slowly, but I couldn't stay any longer. I needed air. When I stepped outside, the cool night breeze hit my face, and I leaned against my car trying to breathe. The world felt too big all of a sudden. I didn't even know where to go or what to do next. So I drove around aimlessly until I somehow ended up at the old park I used to go to as a kid. The swings still squeaked. The lights were still dim, and the whole place smelled like grass and old wood. I sat on one of the benches and pulled out the picture of my real dad again. I kept staring at it, almost daring it to give me some kind of answer, some sign, some feeling of clarity. But all I felt was confusion. Did I want to meet him? No. Yes. Maybe. I wasn't sure. Would he even want to meet me? That made my stomach twist. Did he even know I existed? My aunt never said. After about 40 minutes of overthinking myself into a headache, I got up and walked toward my car, and then I stopped, because my mom was standing there. She must have tracked me somehow, maybe through my aunt, maybe through someone else I didn't ask. But when she saw my face, she froze like she'd seen a ghost. She whispered my name like it hurt her throat. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything cruel. I didn't even ask why she hid it. I just looked at her and let the silence sit between us because I wanted her to speak first. She stepped closer, her eyes glistening, her hands shaking. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to ever think you were unwanted," she whispered. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was scared that if I told you the truth, you'd feel broken." And hearing her say those words shattered something in me. For the first time since this whole thing started, I saw her not as my mother, but as a terrified young woman who had once been alone, pregnant, and ashamed. And I realized she spent 20-something years trying to be strong enough for the both of us. I didn't forgive her instantly. That's not how healing works. But I let her hug me, and I hugged her back. And in that moment, we both cried like two people who finally stopped pretending everything was fine. Eventually, we sat in the car and talked. Really talked. For hours. She told me everything, every detail she could remember, even the ones that hurt. She told me she never wanted to replace the truth. She just wanted to protect me from it. And I believed her. When I dropped her home later that night, something inside me felt lighter. Not fixed, not healed, but lighter. Over the next few days, I thought long and hard about whether I wanted to find the man in the picture. My real father. The stranger who unknowingly shaped half of who I was. I didn't want a father. I already had one. The man who raised me was enough. But I wanted closure. Not for him, for me. So one morning, I finally made the decision. I didn't tell my mom because I didn't want her worrying herself sick. I just got into my car, grabbed the file, and started driving toward the city address listed inside. My heart pounded the whole way there. The closer I got, the more my hands trembled. And when I finally pulled up to the house, his house, I felt this strange mixture of fear, curiosity, resentment, and something I couldn't even name. I walked up the steps. I raised my hand. I knocked, and I had no clue what was waiting on the other side. But whatever happened next, it would finally be the truth. I'm glad you're here with me through this because stories like these hit different when you actually follow them closely. So stick around for all the next parts too. I always thought the scariest thing in a relationship was losing the person you love. But the truth is, the real fear, the deeper, heavier, more gut-twisting fear, is realizing you never actually knew them at all. For almost 4 years, Liam was the safest place in my life. He walked into my world at a time when everything felt unstable. My job was ridiculously demanding. My friendships were fading because everyone was so busy. My family was always halfway across the country. And while I was still holding myself together, I was doing it with tape, not glue. Then he appeared. He was warm, charming, thoughtful, and steady in all the ways I wasn't. He made me breakfast. He remembered my favorite coffee order. He left little sticky notes on my desk reminding me to breathe. He listened, genuinely listened, when I talked about work stress or my fear of becoming emotionally numb. He made me feel seen. He made me feel safe. So when things in my life started getting harder, long hours, office politics, major deadlines, I leaned on him more. And he held me through all of it, or at least that's what I thought. Now, looking back, it's horrifying how blind I was. The first strange thing happened almost 8 months ago. I came home early from work because a meeting got canceled. I walked in expecting to find Liam watching TV or playing music, but the apartment was dark, silent. Then I heard muffled talking coming from the bedroom. Not loud, just tense. I thought maybe he was on a call for work. He was a data analyst at a small tech firm, and sometimes he had crunch days just like I did. So I didn't think much of it until I heard his voice. Low, clipped, urgent, followed by him saying something like, "I told you I would handle it." My stomach had tightened then, but not because I suspected cheating. I didn't even think that way yet. I had no reason to. Liam was loyal, dependable, predictable in the best way. Cheating wasn't even a shadow in my head. Instead, I thought maybe something happened at his job, maybe a mistake, maybe a coworker issue. I quietly backed out of the hallway so he wouldn't know I was listening. I didn't want to pry. He came out of the room 3 minutes later like nothing happened. No stress. No panique. No sign he'd been in a clearly intense conversation. "Hey babe," he said casually, kissing my forehead. "You're home early." That should have been the first red flag. But when you love someone, you don't see flags. You see excuses that feel like truths. I let it go. Then things escalated slowly, like a pot heating until it boils and you don't notice until the room is filled with steam. He started taking more late-night work calls, more long breaks during the day, more closed-door conversations, more secretive texts. More times he would step outside just to talk where it's quieter. But even then, I didn't think cheating. I thought stress, overwork, life. He was still affectionate with me, still supportive, still present, still the guy who cooked dinner with me and laughed at my stupid jokes and held me when I cried after a terrible day. So I trusted him, deeply, entirely, stupidly. The real shift happened on a random Wednesday. One of those days that feel totally unimportant until it becomes the moment that splits your life into before and after. He was in the shower. His phone buzzed. Normally, I'd never touch it. I'm the least snoopy person ever. Privacy matters to me. But the notification preview popped up on its own. And I swear I wasn't even trying to look. It just happened to be angled toward me. The message said, "You left your jacket here last night. Should I keep it safe again? Red heart. My brain stopped functioning for a full 2 seconds. Then the name hit me. Elise. No last name. Just Elise. And that stupid red heart. My chest tightened. My breath caught. A cold, nauseating panic crawled up my spine. I tried to breathe through it, telling myself maybe she was a friend. Maybe he visited someone for something innocent. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Then another message arrived. Miss you already. Same time tonight. The room spun. I froze completely. Phone still on the counter. The shower still running. Steam filling the mirror. My heartbeat slamming against my ribs like it wanted to escape my body. It was the moment my soul cracked. I should have confronted him right then, right there. But something inside me, instinct or fear, told me to wait. Knowledge is power, and surprise is leverage. So I put the phone back exactly how it was. Same angle, same place, and I walked out of the bathroom. For the next 2 hours, I felt like a ghost drifting around my own apartment. Nothing felt real. Not the sounds, the furniture, the lights, even the air felt different, heavier. Like the walls themselves knew something I didn't. He came out of the shower with a towel around his waist, smelling like citrus and cool water, like the man I loved and trusted. I couldn't look at him the same way. My skin crawled, my stomach twisted, but I smiled. Fake, fragile, convincing enough. He hugged me from behind. Missed you this morning. I wanted to break down. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him who the hell Elise was. But instead I said, missed you too. That night, he went out again for work. He kissed my cheek before leaving. Don't wait up. It might run late. My chest burned at his touch. After he left, I grabbed my keys and phone and followed him. I felt like I was going to throw up from the anxiety, but I couldn't stay home wondering. I needed the truth in my own hands. I stayed far behind him, driving slower, keeping several cars between us. He never looked back, never suspected. He was too comfortable in his lies. He didn't go to work. He didn't go anywhere near his office. He drove to a hotel. A fucking hotel. I watched him walk inside with confident strides, like it was routine, like he'd done it 100 times before. My vision blurred with tears. My chest physically hurt. I wanted to ram my car into the hotel lobby, but I stayed still. I took pictures. I wrote down the time, the room number he requested, the exact moment he disappeared inside. I sat there for 40 minutes before I drove away because I couldn't take it anymore. Every second I waited felt like another stab. When he came home later, he smelled like perfume that wasn't mine. A softer scent, floral, delicate, and he climbed into bed beside me like nothing happened. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, counting the breaths of the man who betrayed me in ways I hadn't even fully uncovered yet. The next day, I dug deeper. I searched his drawers, his jacket pockets, his car, his laptop, his receipts, and the deeper I looked, the worse it became. There were gaps in his story. Nights he said he was home but wasn't. Receipts from places he swore he never visited. Cash withdrawals that didn't make sense. Text messages deleted at perfect intervals. He wasn't just cheating. He was living an entirely different life. With her. A second set of toiletries hidden in his gym bag. Conversations I pieced together from browser history. Emails from a secondary account. A different credit card he never told me about. The final blow came when I called the number from the hotel booking. A woman answered. Soft voice. Confident tone. Beautiful even through the phone. Hello, I said. Is this Elise? She paused. Just long enough for me to know she knew exactly who I was. Then she hung up. My hands shook uncontrollably. For the next 3 days, I pretended everything was normal. I laughed at his jokes. I told him I loved him. I cooked dinner with him, kissed him goodnight, and every night I cried silently while he slept. It felt like I was living in a cracked mirror. Everything looked familiar but distorted. The man beside me wasn't the man I thought he was. He didn't even come close. The worst moment came that Friday. He came home early, excited, smiling. I have amazing news, he said. picking me up and spinning me like we were in some stupid rom-com. I got promoted. I stared at him, tears burning behind my eyes. He hugged me tighter. Things are finally falling into place for us. The word felt dirty in his mouth, because I knew now, deeply painfully, that there wasn't an us. There was me, and there was him, and there was her, and the double life he had been maintaining so flawlessly, until the day his phone lit up in the wrong moment. But I still didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed the full story. Not just cheating, not just betrayal, not just heartbreak, but everything he'd been hiding, everything he was lying about, everything he was capable of. Because something told me the cheating was only the beginning, a symptom of something deeper, a darker pattern I hadn't uncovered yet. And I was right. The double life he was living wasn't just romantic. It was something far worse. And when I finally learned the truth, it shattered everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and danger. This was only the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Leo's face in that hallway. The shock, the panic, the guilt. My body felt like it was vibrating from the inside. By morning, I was physically sick. Headache, nausea, the whole thing. But the worst part was the silence. He didn't call. He didn't text. Nothing. Around noon, I finally picked up my phone and scrolled through the messages between him and Vanessa. I don't know why I did that to myself. Maybe I wanted to understand. Maybe I wanted proof this wasn't just some drunken mistake. But seeing the goodnight red heart messages, the plans they made, the jokes they shared, the hotel receipts he paid for, it felt like someone was dragging barbed wire through my chest. I spent the entire day replaying moments in my head. The night he came home late from work, the stupid lipstick stain I ignored, the way he'd get nervous whenever his phone buzzed, the shower texts, the lies he hid behind a smile. Every memory hit me like a punch. And the cruel thing was, I still loved him. That was the part that broke me the most. Around 7 p.m., he finally showed up at my apartment. I heard his hesitant knock, soft like he was afraid I'd explode. My stomach twisted. I opened the door just enough to see his face. He looked wrecked. Red eyes, messy hair, guilt carved into every line of his face. "Can we talk?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I walked back inside and left the door open because I didn't trust myself to speak. He followed slowly, closing it behind him. He didn't sit. He didn't touch anything. He stood there like someone on trial. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. I messed up. I know." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the word messed up felt so painfully small compared to the damage he caused. "You had a whole secret relationship, Leo," I said. "That's not a mistake. That's a choice." He looked down at the floor like a guilty child. "It wasn't supposed to get that far. It started as flirting. I was stressed, overwhelmed, and she made me feel. If you say she made you feel appreciated," I snapped, "I'm going to physically throw you out of my house." He squeezed his eyes shut. "I never meant to hurt you." "Then why did you?" I asked. "Why did you keep going back to her? Why didn't you stop? Why didn't you just tell me you didn't want to be with me anymore?" He swallowed hard. "Because I do want to be with you. I love you." The words felt like poison now. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done any of this." There was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. He finally sank onto the couch, burying his head in his hands. "I was stupid. I was selfish. Vanessa flirted with me and it felt good. I didn't shut it down. I thought I could control it, but I didn't. And then she started relying on me, opening up to me, telling me things, and I don't know. I felt needed." I clenched my jaw. "So I wasn't enough?" He looked up, eyes full of panic. No, it's not that. You're everything I could ever want. You're amazing. I don't deserve you." "You're right," I said quietly. "You don't." He winced like I hit him. There were 1,000 things I wanted to scream, but the exhaustion in my bones made everything come out barely above a whisper. How long were you going to keep this up? I asked. Another month? A year? Until she wanted more? Until she threatened to tell me? His silence was the answer. I felt something cold settle inside me. Clarity. I'm done, Leo. His head snapped up.
No.
No, please. Please don't say that. We can fix this. I'll cut her off. I'll block her. I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. You already did enough. He got up and walked toward me, hands shaking like he wanted to hold me but was afraid to try. I made a mistake. Don't throw away everything we built. You threw it away the moment you kissed her. His face crumpled. I'll end it with her, he said desperately. I'll prove it to you. I stared at him for a long time. Okay, I said softly. Call her, right now. He froze. The fear on his face told me everything before he even opened his mouth. Do it, I said. If you're serious, call her and end it. He slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. I expected resistance, excuses, hesitation, but he unlocked it, opened the call log, and tapped her name. My stomach twisted as it rang. She picked up on the second ring. Leo? Hey, are you okay? You disappeared after. I can't do this anymore, he said, voice barely stable. We're done. There was a pause. What? She said. Leo, what are you talking about? I cheated. Elite. I hurt someone I care about. I can't keep doing this. I'm done. I could hear her breathing get sharper. Is she there? Is that why you're talking like this? Yes, he said. Another pause. Then she laughed, bitter and cold. You think you can just walk away? After everything you've told me? After everything you said about her? My blood froze. What did he say about me? I cut in. My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. Silence. Then she scoffed. Oh, wow. You can talk. What did he say about me? I repeated. Leo looked like he was dying inside. Ask him, she said. Since he loves being two different people. And she hung up. Leo slowly lowered the phone. His eyes were wet. What exactly did you say about me? He shook his head. She's twisting things. Answer me. He swallowed hard. I complained. About work stress. About feeling overwhelmed. About us arguing sometimes. We barely argue. I know, he whispered. I said things in the moment. Things I didn't mean. What things? He closed his eyes. That sometimes you didn't understand me, didn't listen, that I felt lonely. My mouth fell open. Lonely? With me? When I did everything for you. I know, he said. I was venting, stupidly, to the wrong person. I stepped back like he'd hit me. You used my insecurities as an excuse to cheat on me? No. You told another woman that I wasn't enough for you? I didn't say that, he pleaded. I was looking for validation. I stared at him, and for the first time since the night before, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt disgust. You need to leave, I said. He froze. Please don't do this. Don't throw us away. You threw us away, I repeated. Now get out. He moved toward me like he wanted to fight for me, but I stepped back, and I think that was the moment he realized it was over. For real. His shoulders sagged. His eyes filled. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. But before stepping out, he looked back one last time. I love you, he whispered. I didn't say it back. I closed the door behind him and slid down to the floor, finally letting myself break. For a long time, I cried until I had nothing left. And then, slowly, painfully, the weight started to lift. Just enough for me to breathe. Just enough to move forward. And the first step forward was simple but freeing. I blocked his number. I deleted the messages. I chose myself. And honestly, I'm proud I did. If you've ever been through something like this, you know the strength it takes to walk away. And if you're listening right now, thank you for being here with me. It means more than you think. If you want more stories like this, just hit subscribe. It really helps me keep sharing these with you.